I'd like to call to order the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education meeting. Can we please stand for the pledge? Thank you. Excuse me. Moving on to 3.1, acceptance of agenda. Do I have any additions or deletions? Seeing none, we approve by consensus. Moving on to 3.2, can I have a recommendation approval of the minutes? Mrs. Haynes.
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following minutes. May 4th, 2023, special minutes for Facilities and Finance. May 11th, 2023, regular and closed minutes.
Can I have a second, please? Mr. Chahorsky? May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Chahorsky?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, a person may address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item by completing a note card located inside the boardroom and place the card in the basket prior to the citizen public comment period. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If you need more time, you are afforded a second opportunity to address the board at the end of the meeting with an additional 3 minutes. Please address the board as a whole and not individually. Public comment is not intended for the exchange of dialogue. This is a time for members of the public to address their views. We are paying attention to your comments and appreciate them. However, school board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Questions that arise from public comment shall be referred to the superintendent or their designee for review, study, and possible future response. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Thank you. I would like to call up Kyle Lewis, please.
Right here.
Over at the table, please. Either one is fine. Thank you.
My name is Kyle Lewis. I'm a parent of a current 8th grader. I spoke with the superintendent on June 2nd regarding the Rainbow Land flags and the terrorist organization BLM flags being placed everywhere at the school. During our exchange, she said the quiet part out loud, "You know we can mess with your daughter at school, and you might not even notice. This sounds like a threat to me or anyone that disagrees with your degeneracy. So this needs to be looked at, as well as the superintendent probably fired, along with all the other liberal socialist people you have trying to indoctrinate our kids. Your job is to teach math, science, reading, writing, and to fly one flag. Product placing leftist extremist BLM and alphabet people flags all over your school is propaganda warfare, psychological warfare, and political warfare. When I filled out the police report on the superintendent, the 4 cops I spoke with agreed to me about gay, BLM, and God should not be forced in public school. They said to say that too. The employees pushing this at the school are just an extension of Planned Parenthood. If a student at your school doesn't have kids because you tricked him or her, who will care for them when they are old? Not you. After speaking with the middle school principal and the superintendent, it left me absolute cringe and mortified because I haven't stood up earlier. But when I did, you threatened my daughter. But when I should have already known this, because you liberals are the worst people on the planet. That's what my father and mother have said, and they're both military veterans who've been all over the world. As a business owner, I take it personally that the BLM flags are flown at the school since they burn down, vandalize, and loot. And the Catholics in your school system should already know this. They should be standing up because it's right and just to. You also disrespect the Jewish and Muslim communities with your nonsense. Some people personally think God should be in school, but that would be pushing my beliefs on you. But some don't want morals, and that's fine. But keep your degeneracy to yourself.
Next public comment, William Asher.
Hello, my name is William Asher. I live at 1003 Irving Avenue, resident of Royal Oak for just over 30 years. And my son graduated from the former Dondero High School in 2000. I mention him because he was different and had and that caused some difficulties with his working with other children and with the teachers in the school. But the administration of Dondero worked out a way to include him and accept him. And then he adjusted and thrived. And the reason I tell the story is not much of a story, but the reason I tell that story is that the act of inclusion is powerful. And I understand that the Royal Oak Schools has an explicit inclusion policy, and I want to commend the board and the administration for that policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael James.
I understand I have about 3 minutes. This feels very formal, chair and everything. It's comfortable, thank you. I won't take the whole 3 minutes, but I support your efforts to make this a safe and comfortable environment for LGBTQ students. And I think these policies are good. And we shouldn't be excluding people or try to tell people how to live. And I think that too much in the past, we as a society have not treated them well. And it's our fault. But to treat them with respect, recognize they exist, it's good. And I support that. I've been a resident here for 10 years. And keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ty Buffington, please. Thank you.
Hi. So I grew up in Royal Oak, and I just moved back after living in Ann Arbor to attend U of M. And I graduated from Royal Oak schools, went to Oakland Elementary and then Royal Oak Middle School, and I was able to attend the International Academy through one of the 5 spots that Royal Oak allocates towards that. And I have 2 younger brothers in one in elementary school who's going to be starting at the middle school in the fall, and the other's in 8th grade at the middle school right now. And I just want to say that I support policies that ensure that LGBT students feel safe and welcome in Royal Oak schools. I think it's important. I felt that way in my time at Royal Oak schools, and felt really proud to see the pride flag flying out there today. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for public comment?
I just walked in and didn't fill it out yet.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
I had a hard time getting here. Took the okay. Anyway, my name is Helena Daly. I am a resident of Royal Oak and have been for many years. I was a substitute teacher here in Royal Oak for many years. And I just want to say that I'm in support of inclusivity. I am in support of what you're doing. I have a member of my family who has transitioned, and just keep up the good work, and I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you can come on up too. Thank you.
Thank you. I was afraid I cut it a little too close, so I appreciate the opportunity. I'll be brief as well. My name is Lisa Mason. I've been a resident of Royal Oak for probably about 40 years or right around that mark, and have children that have graduated from the schools. And I want to add my support to what's already been said, that all students need to feel welcomed, safe, and included when they come to school, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity or their understanding of all of that. So I appreciate the support that this school is providing for these children and all children in our schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Moving on to next on the agenda, number 5, proclamations and presentation. 5.1, Board Proclamation, LGBTQ+ Pride Month. May I have a resolution? Mrs. Haynes.
Whereas Royal Oak Schools District models, advocates, actively supports, and promotes the inclusive and respectful treatment of all students, staff, family members, and community members, and whereas the district believes that all students should be able to attend school in a safe and inclusive environment free from discrimination, and whereas the district is firmly committed to providing a safe, nurturing, and tolerant environment in our schools, and whereas the district is firmly committed to school safety for all students, staff, and family members, including the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, LGBTQ community, or those that may be perceived as such, and whereas the district is committed to creating a positive school environment by maintaining a safe environment and developing a sense of belonging for all students and staff, and whereas the month of June and other times throughout the instructional year are opportunities to celebrate and value the identities and contributions of the LGBTQ community. Whereas the rainbow flag, also known as the LGBTQ pride flag, serves as a symbol of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and gender nonconforming pride and the LGBTQ civil rights movement. And whereas flying the rainbow flag throughout the month of June further symbolizes the district's celebration of diversity and support for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and gender nonconforming community. And whereas we recognize the struggle for equal rights continues today and are committed to expanding partnerships, policy reviews, and updates, and opportunities to exercise learning courage that further our journey towards gender-inclusive schools. And whereas by recognizing Pride Month, we affirm that supportive school environments substantially improve the mental health and school engagement of LGBTQ students, and now therefore be it resolved that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education hereby designates June as Pride Month and calls on district staff to teach with the resources and engage in professional learning that further journey towards gender-inclusive schools during the month of June and all year long.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Mrs. Anderson. Any comments? Mrs. Alexander.
I wanted to just talk briefly about my professional career. For the last 24 years, I have worked as a mental health and addictions counselor, and have worked in the nonprofit world. And I feel like it's important, I appreciate the support of those who have spoken, but I wanted to also highlight some of the reasons why it is extremely important that we continue to challenge the voices who protest the flying of the pride flags and the recognition and support of LGBTQ students. Not only is this important for our students, but it is important for our staff and other community members who may identify with that, that they are seen in our community. Because what we know is that individuals in this, whether it's in adolescence or in adulthood, who identify themselves as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, are at greater risk for suicide. They are at greater risk for depression, anxiety, and substance use disorders. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight tonight is there was a study that was done in 2017 that found that LGBTQ plus adolescents were 3 times more likely than their heterosexual counterparts to exhibit depressive conditions and twice as likely to harm themselves. In the study, 20% of participants attempted suicide and over half considered it. LGBTQ adolescents were more likely than their non-LGBTQ counterparts to seek therapy in the previous 12 months at 41%. Additionally, the Youth 2000 survey of 2021 indicated that LGBTQ plus youth faced a higher risk of alcohol and substance usage. So this article goes on to talk about the importance of schools in particular in their roles, and it talks about at this critical juncture, experiencing discrimination at the hands of academic, clinical, or religious establishments, or internalizing victimization as a consequence of discrimination, transphobia, biphobia will create substantial mental difficulties for LGBTQ adolescents. And lastly, an LGBTQ-friendly climate has a profound impact on the psychological development and well-being. And if that you cannot separate as human beings our psychological well-being, our psychological development from that of our need to learn. You cannot separate that. And so as a school board member, one of the things that I feel is incredibly important and support is our social emotional learning. And that is also, of course, a big part of inclusivity. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Jaworski.
I guess we're Mrs. Alexander, and I did not compare notes, so we have the same information with slightly different numbers. But I just want to let everyone know in the audience and all of our students and staff as to why I support this very important proclamation. 2 years ago, we introduced the very first Pride Proclamation in this district, which I thought was kind of crazy because this is a plight and a fight that's been going on for decades and decades. And I think we were finally able to acknowledge that fight and let our students and staff know that they were welcome, they're safe, and they can do what they want to do and be who they are within our school district. So I looked and I found other numbers from the Trevor Project. This is an organization that works with LGBTQ youth. And the numbers I found to be kind of astonishing. They interviewed 34,000 people in 2022. That's the most recent information that I could find from that organization. Out of those numbers, they state 45% of those students who identify as LGBTQ in any way, shape, or form, 45% of those students seriously considered suicide. Out of those students, 14% of them attempted to end their lives by suicide. 82% of those wanted mental health. Out of those 82% of the survey takers, 60 of them said they could not find the care that they needed. I think it's important, and I know that we do our best within this district to be sure that those students can find the help they need, they have people to talk to, and they are able to express themselves as they are. These students do face stresses for simply being who they are. These are stresses that other students don't have on their daily basis when they come to school. So it's another important reason why we need to support this community. It is our responsibility to offer a safe and welcoming place for these students and our staff. And we have LGBTQ staff that need to feel supported and need to be safe when they come to work as well. And for those reasons, I fully support this proclamation.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So this was not a setup, but and I think it's actually really profound and really speaks volumes because the initial data that I had talked about from this particular scholarly article was from 2017. So what we're seeing is not surprising because we're also seeing this in non-LGBTQ adolescent community, an increase in the worsening of mental health. But you know, looking at the statistics that you just talked about in comparison to 5 years prior to that, we're not headed in a right direction. So we need to continue the fight.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. Well, I just want to applaud our board for this proclamation tonight and also for the work all year along with our staff and the other leadership of our schools and our community here in Royal Oak. And taking it right from the proclamation, that providing a safe, nurturing, and tolerant environment in our schools is absolutely necessary. We are an inclusive environment, and we always have been, and I think that recognition that Mr. Jaworski spoke about is very important as well. All of our students and staff deserve to be in a place where they feel safe and they know that they belong, and I want to make sure that all of our staff and students know that, and our families know that in this community. And again, thank you to our board for this proclamation this evening.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson, can we have a vote?
Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Trustee Jasinski.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Yes.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your comments. I think it's very helpful as well to just to share those statistics, so thank you. Moving on, item 5.2, recognition of donations, gifts, and acceptance. 5.2.1, ROMS Level 3 SE program. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Alexander.
Resolved that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education gratefully accepts the following donations as presented. Anonymous $1,000 ROMS Level 3 Special Education Program.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Mr. Jaworski, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jasinski.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Yes.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on, item 5.3, OCCAE Award Recognition. Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like Karen Powell to come on up. She's our director of the Churchill Community High School, and Joy Zug from our continuing education and adult ed programs. And of course, this is just a wonderful recognition for Joy and all the hard work that she puts into her program. So I'll let Ms. Powell speak now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am very overjoyed, no pun intended, and proud to be here to introduce Joy Zug this evening as this year's Oakland County Community and Adult Educator Community Education Director / Coordinator Award recipient. I've had the honor of working with Joy now for the past 3 years. During the time that I have come to work with her, I've come to realize that the little bit I knew of Joy prior to this, when she did a long-term sub-position at Royal Oak High School, just scratched the surface of the amazing educator and person that Joy is. I remember the first time that Joy and I actually truly met one another after I started the position at Churchill. It was through Google Meet because the pandemic was in full swing. And we initially connected on our science backgrounds as two former science teachers and the desire to make Churchill Community Education Center the very best it could be. It became abundantly clear during the meeting that my expertise was alternative and secondary education and that I had much to learn about community and adult education. And Joy has stuck by me and taught me much over the 3 years, and I continue to learn from her each and every day. What struck me beyond her extensive knowledge was her passion, was her patience, generosity, and kindness. She told me in that meeting, "We are going to have a great working relationship. I just know it." And I'd like to think that we have that and even more now. Joy brings an energy and a passion that is incomparable. She constantly is trying out new innovative ideas, applying for grants, researching and collaborating with others to build the program and to increase success and celebrate our students and staff alike. She makes every attempt to understand the needs of all of our students, creating and setting a path for them to reach their own individual goals. She makes others feel welcome and at ease at all times, which is so important when you're working with adult students that have had experiences that were very difficult in their past, both academically or in their present, actually, both academically and personally. Many refer to Churchill as having a family feel, a place they know that they can be there or return for guidance, support, and understanding, while being encouraged to work hard and meet expectations. Joy helps create this atmosphere. She does it by sharing herself with her students, staff, and colleagues alike. She's often giving differing perspectives to consider while she's speaking with others, while she shares her humor and personal experiences that she's had. Some of those personal experiences stem from the time that she worked outside of the public school sector, and she brings those in as examples as well into her work with our adult learners. I truly cannot think of a better individual to receive this recognition. Joy is one of a kind, and the staff and students and Royal Oak Schools are extremely lucky to have Joy as the coordinator of continuing education at Churchill.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to say that I really, really like this job, and I hope to continue to do it for a really long time. The lives we touch, every one of them is meaningful to me, and I am proud and honored to receive this award and to work in such a great district. Thank you. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Mr. Jaworski?
I just want to say, we were at the Churchill graduation last night, and everything Ms. Powell said about you, Ms. Zug, is completely true. The comments that the students were making, praising your work you've done with them, the relationships and the bonds you've formed with them, is absolutely fantastic, and it's obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Yashinsky?
Yeah, I wanted to echo that too. The ceremony last night was just so beautiful for both of your programs, and I mean, it helped that it was a beautiful night. But I think, especially as an educator, like for us to sit there and kind of watch it happen, I think the thing that was the most special was that even though the event and the night was about our graduates and the people who were achieving their GED and finishing our programs, like the love and admiration that they looked at the two of you with was just really, really touching, because that doesn't happen all the time, right? And that takes something really, really special. And it just, that dynamic was just really clear. So what a great week for us to celebrate both that accomplishment last night, but then you as an educator tonight. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Thank you. Well, congratulations, Joy. I just want to read that the award that you've received was for recognition of significant leadership and administrative ability in the field of adult and community education. And this is something that we clearly have known in Royal Oak and in our programs about you for a long time. And I think to be recognized by your peers and a group that represents the work that you are so passionate about and have been so committed to is just a wonderful, wonderful accolade. So again, congratulations too, and good for us that we have you here with us and your students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just have to duplicate everything everybody said. The Churchill graduation is by far, well, the high school is a favorite. Churchill is, but it's just knowing that every student has a story. And there was a different path for them to choose to get to where they were. And I even choke up when I talk about it. So, but thank you very much for everything you do. And I know it's truly, truly appreciated. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
5.4, District Technology Update. Dr. Ioannis.
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heitzma. We wanted to spend some time tonight talking about some of the accomplishments that have really taken place between our curriculum and technology department. Those two departments have worked very closely this year to really take a step back and then look into our classrooms and buildings to truly identify the technology needed at all levels, K through 12. So part of what we're going to learn about today from Ben Rader, our supervisor of secondary education, and Ann Njovu, our supervisor of elementary education, we will learn about the process that we took and a little bit of how we landed on our technology plan moving forward. One of the main reasons why we're excited about it is we feel confident that we'll be putting the correct amount of devices in all of our students' hands throughout all of our classrooms. So we are definitely excited to officially talk about this plan tonight. And I'll pass it over to Ben and Ann.
I will start with the elementary level. Good evening, everybody. With the staff, we have a 5-year cycle for devices, laptops for our staff. So our elementary teachers will be receiving brand new laptops, which is very much needed. After 5 years, you can imagine the batteries have a shorter life, screens get dinged, etc. So they will be receiving new models, and they're all very, very excited about that. In the classrooms, as Dr. Ioannis said, we are stocking each classroom with a full set of Chromebooks that will also be locked up when they're not in use. So we have two sets of lockers for each for the Chromebook sets. When they're able to, they can take them out, use them all day, and then plug them back in and secure them at night. We have reviewed available devices for our students, and after talking with teachers, we have decided to put touchscreen Chromebooks in the K and 1 classrooms with plans of extending that into even the 2nd grade in future years, because we understand that it's their motor skills aren't exactly developed to manage the mouse on there, or even the extension of the mouse, the handheld mouse on the side. So having that touch screen will allow them to engage a little bit more with the Chromebooks. But we decided to stick with the Chromebooks because, as opposed to going to a tablet device, because the interface is often different, apps that they use in the classroom might look different. So, and we have that keyboard for when they go into the upper grade levels and begin typing more intensely. We do also have our classrooms outfitted with quite a bit of technology, including smart boards, document cameras, as well as audio enhancement using the EPIC system. For students, during COVID, we received funding to provide a Chromebook to take home and use at home for every student, K-12. We do still have remaining devices for you through that grant. However, we have decided that since we have class sets to use in the classroom, starting with the graduating class of 2034, I can't even believe I'm saying that year, they are going to, anyone in that graduating class and later that are newly enrolled can actually go into the website and apply to receive an ECF device, because they were in kindergarten during the year that they were distributed. So with every passing year, they will move up, and any newly enrolled student will receive one if they so choose. Then finally, yes, the students with these devices are not expected to bring their Chromebooks to and from school because of the newly supplied classroom sets, which we believe is much handier, especially if we ask them to come in and they're not charged and everything. So we are preparing the classrooms to be fully functioning with these devices.
All right, and good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about the secondary technology plan. So as Ann mentioned, we are in a 5-year cycle for replenishing staff devices. The middle school got new devices in the fall of 21, and the high school in the fall of 20, so 5 years out from those dates, they'll be replenishing those. They're still going strong with those staff, so they're in pretty good shape and holding up well. For the classroom environment, a little bit different at the middle school and high school level because kind of the expectations a little bit different. As we came through COVID, we transformed a lot of our learning to the Canvas online learning management platform, and that has allowed our teachers to really facilitate a lot of the learning online, which also then kind of increased the expectation that students have access to that information not only in the school during the school day in their classroom, but also at home. So along with the ECF devices, students are now expected to bring a fully charged device with them to school every day. And the plan moving forward was to transform supporting that plan, not with 30 Chromebooks in a cart that you had to lug all over the building, very cumbersome, kind of a loss in time in terms of instructional time for transitions, but instead is to also put a locker in every classroom and outfit it with 5 to 7 devices that would be there to support students whose device they maybe forgot at home that day, or it wasn't fully charged, or whatever other circumstances there might be. So the expectation is that students have their fully charged Chromebook in class with them, but we've got a backup plan for those students that may not be able to do that for that classroom. Still, students have the ability to sign up at any time and accept an ECF device. That is, as Ann mentioned, that will be in place for many years to come. And we have still a stockpile of devices ready to go and to support those students. Churchill looks a little bit different. They have full Chromebook carts on site every day, fully charged and ready to go, because the vast majority of their work happens during the school day under the tutelage of their teacher. Karen Powell has worked hard to kind of design the system and to work with the technology department to make sure that she has a plan that fits the needs of her students. And this has worked very well for several years now. So, so a little bit different from that perspective.
So I don't want to minimize the excitement and the profound and very important commitment that we've made to all of these technology devices, but they are a tool. They are an instructional and learning tool that we are using to leverage student learning. So the other part of this presentation is to talk about what having these devices in our district and having our classrooms stocked with these devices will allow us to do. We have worked, you can see the names of the people on the current team, Jill Hill, Amy Herman, Shayna Raymond, Ben and myself, and we have started to look at a tool that allows us to assess where we are in our planning and development utilizing technology in our schools. We've chosen the Future Ready Schools, and their vision is of implementing meaningful digital learning that requires thoughtful planning, preparation, and data-informed decision-making. So as I mentioned, we sat down across 2 meetings, as well as an individual self-reflection for a total of 4 hours to really look at the assessment and discuss as a team where we feel our district is. And that will then help us move forward in planning and implementation, which we will expand the team next year to include our building level technology lead teachers as well as administration, so we can continue building our vision and following through on that in order to make the tools that we have now readily available to us a way of even furthering our instruction and our learning on the student's end. Are there any questions?
Ms. Usinski.
Thanks for this. This is great, and I'm really, really glad to hear about the staff support in partnership with going one-to-one because it's hard to do. Is any part of our technology plan hotspots for families, though? Because I know, laptops are great, but if you don't have internet at home, we might run into some trouble.
I believe we have had programs like that in place where there are third parties that have assisted with the cost on that. and I believe that they're still readily available through the technology department. But it is something we have talked about, making sure that that is strong and robust and accessible for all families moving forward.
Okay, yeah, I would just want to make sure that we're also, pairing the rollout of this with information about that just in case. And I guess for families listening too, Royal Oak Public Library, you can check out hotspots at the Library of Things too. So this summer, if it's an issue, something to consider. But yeah, I just want to make sure that that's, part of our plan moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else, any questions? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the update, and I know, again, we discussed these things too at Finance and Facilities as well last week, but yeah, thank you for all the work on this. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, reports. 6.1, diversity, equity, inclusion. Mrs. Fitzpatrick and Mrs. Martin. Dr. Martin, sorry.
So good evening, this evening, board. I have a couple of updates for everyone. First, with the Human Rights Commission, we have bylaws. They were voted on and approved Monday. So now we will be able to do some things. We are also seeking to have a presence just to talk to people and get out at the Juneteenth celebration. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in my report. JEDI, the final meeting of the year, will be June 21st. It will be here, and it will be a dinner meeting, and I am in the process of getting our final agenda together, and I will let the group add on to that as well. So they will build the agenda together. Feeding off of what the presentation that just happened, I've been working with that whole department to do some professional development planning for the year. We met for a full day of planning on May 23rd with about 15 teachers and administrators from across the district, and we spent an entire day to develop the first of anywhere between 6 to 8 professional development lessons that will be required of all teachers and administrators in the district moving forward. And the decision was made that everybody would go through it regardless of where they were in this training, because we have had about 40% new teachers and, COVID and some other things, so we don't know who has had what. So the series looks to expand to about maybe 8 for an entire year, school year, and would be integrated into the Late Start program. So they're pretty much done with the first 3, just some things to tweak. And we're going to try to finish that before the school ends, and if not, we will reconvene for a day in the summer. And then we're also going to reconvene in the fall to repeat the process for the winter semester. So we'll have, crossing our fingers, 3 for the first semester and 3 for the second semester, all dealing with issues of diversity. And that's what we're working on now, the scope and the sequence, like how should we introduce it and what things should be covered. So I'm pleased about that. All of our teachers will, have some core training, and then my vision too is to hopefully add on what I call extra credit or heightened training on advanced topics like anti-racism or things like that that would not be required but would be available. So we're excited about that. Lastly, and certainly not least, I'm just finding the clicker, I wanted to share with the board my recent trip to NCORE, which stands for the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity. Just as a visual, this is the book. This was the programs for 5 days that you had to choose from. And so I wanted to share, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Fitzpatrick and the board for sending me, because this work, as most of you know, is not easy. It's rewarding, but it's hard. And so this conference allows me to get fed. It allows me to get full instead of giving out all the time. So for those of you who may not know what NCORE is, it stands for the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity. It was launched by the Southwest Center for Regional Human Relations Studies at Oklahoma University, and that was quite some time ago. The 2 focuses that they do research, as is outlined in the first paragraph, But as the second paragraph states, the NCORE conference series constitutes the leading and most comprehensive national forum on issues of race and ethnicity in higher education. And even though that says higher education, all of these things and some things I'm going to share with you in a minute are highly applicable to K through 12. There were several K through 12 administrators there with me because, as I've said many times in my presentation, the work is the work. You just have to make it age appropriate for your audience. So just a couple of highlights. Michelle Alexander was one of the keynotes, and for those of you who don't, she spoke on mass incarceration and the age of colorblindness. She wrote The New Jim Crow, which if you haven't read it, I highly recommend. And in that book and in her talk, she explores the cultural biases that still exist in our society and how segregation has been replaced by mass incarceration. One of the statistics she gave that blew everybody away, that currently there are more African Americans in prison than there were enslaved persons in 1850. The second keynote I was blessed to be able to hear was a woman by the name of Linda Sarsour. She is a Muslim women's advocate, and she is the organizer, was the organizer, I'm sorry, of the Women's March on Washington. And her talk was, as you can see at the quote at the top, "We are not here to be bystanders." She talked all about activism and interrupting and disrupting the system. So she was also very good. So one of the sessions I went to that I'd like to share with everybody here was called Implicit Bias and the Structural Racism, and it was facilitated by a gentleman named Hugh Vasquez. He was a senior associate for the National Equity Project. So you might be saying, what else can we know about implicit bias, right? We talk about that ad nauseum. And so he talked about how if you follow this chart over at the left-hand side, the priming that happens when we are constantly bombarded with images, messages, and experiences, right? And so those turn into assumptions and associations, and that information that we input into ourselves, and sometimes we make decisions and actions that aren't even congruent with how we think because they're automatic, right? And so one of the examples that they talked about with the priming is the Little Mermaid is white, but not so much. That's why there was such backlash, I think. And so here is the diagram he used to talk about how implicit bias and structural racism prop each other up. So if you start at the right hand, over here at the left-hand side where you see the TV and the newspaper, so we're priming, we're constantly getting associations and messages of one kind. Then those assumptions and associations affect how we make policy, affect how we practice medicine and other things like that. As you can see up in the right-hand corner, it says certain things like working rights, FHA loans, all of those kind of decisions are made by those of us with these assumptions. And then down at the bottom, the inequitable outcomes is what is the result of that. And so this fascinated me because I never thought of the two of them holding each other up. And I think when you can use and see concrete examples of how implicit bias can affect us, it makes it easier for people to kind of understand that you would even not vote, but kind of make decisions that aren't even something you believe in just because you have an automatic response. And biases, again, get institutionalized through collective practices like who we call back for a job interview. Some of you know a lot of this. The length and severity of sentences by judges in crimes who are punished more severely, who receives proper pain medication, how quickly some people are shot by the police. And here's where we talk about the K-12 issue, for example, entrance into AP and honors programs. Very biased. Who gets disciplined in school and who does not. FICO credit scores, again, that's not for kids in school, but in the loan algorithm. So what do? We have to provide, and this is, again, part of what he talked about, we have to develop strategies, and it has to be something that's disruptive and interrupts the pattern that we just saw. And so one example that he gave in education is to change the structure and process to interrupt and mitigate our biases, right? So one of the things he talked about if you go down to the second dot, was eliminating subjectivity and placement decisions for AP honors courses be requiring students to opt out. So everybody would be in unless they opted out, which would give a ton of people more chances to prove that they could take an AP course. Another suggestion was to place the most talented and experienced teachers with the most high-risk students. I know some people don't like that, but that was a strategy. And this is what I thought was interesting, to discipline policies and practices whereby the most serious negative behaviors are subject to suspension, to, instead of taking the child out of the classroom, put a trusted adult in there with them, therefore leaving them in the class but being monitored. So this is just one strategy on one thing that we can, do to disrupt the system. And I will end with a quote. No, I won't. It won't end with a quote. I'll just say a quote. Those who practice leadership for equity must confront, disappoint, and dismantle, and at the same time, energize, inspire, and empower. And as I can personally tell you, I love this work, but it's exhausting. And so again, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to get my cup filled at this conference. So I don't know how this is gonna work, Paula, with it. Should I just go up to the thing? It's a link. Should I just go up there? Okay. This is just a link for any of you. And I will send it to Paula to send to the board. For more information about what I just said. The link between. I wish you guys could see this because it's making me sign in.
So while Dr. Martin's looking at that, I just want to add a few things. One, she and I meet just about once a week formally and many times throughout the week informally, but coming back from the conference was, I do believe she brought that energy both into the conference and was very excited about picking the sessions and things, as well as when she came back. We are planning a professional development workshop for August for all of our staff, and part of that is a chance to take choice sessions, and Dr. Martin will be a featured choice session during that time. I believe 3 or 4 different times, Dr. Ioannis, during that morning, when teachers can select specific sessions, much like a conference. And Dr. Martin will be putting on several sessions for our own staff so that she can share her learning, as well as carry it out to our teachers throughout the year, and then back through our JEDI group. So being a part of a national conference is very exciting, and as she said, fulfilling for her professionally and personally, but also extending that learning to others and building our internal capacity as a part of sending someone to a conference like this. So we've been very excited to get her booked as one of our own featured and keynote speakers coming up. So
we're having technical difficulties, but anyway, I will send this out to the board. Basically what that was, and you saw it briefly, it was just a long, not a long, but a, somewhat long article about how you can't separate the two, and talks about the research that went into that. I'll make sure that the board gets it. Let me see, do I just skip it? Yes. And so my last thing to talk about and remember is Juneteenth is coming up. We had another meeting today. We're pretty much meeting weekly now as we come up to it. There's a link there, which we won't try to do again, but it's Rami.gov. If you click on that, the very first thing at the top is Celebrate Juneteenth with Us. If you click on that, it's a whole schedule of events and everything. We chose this year to do it on a Monday because Sunday is Father's Day and Monday is actually Juneteenth. So it will be Monday the 19th from 3:30 to 8. And we have all kinds of things like face painting and the Buffalo Soldiers and horses and demonstrations of Freedom Walk. So there's a lot to get involved with this year. And that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Jaworski?
Dr. Martin, on the Juneteenth celebration, is there any collaboration with our students and the city? Like any events that they're doing together?
Yes and no. The interesting thing is that we as a district don't do it, the city does it. And I'm sort of like the district rep, and there's people from the city there, and the descendants of the first African-American family and stuff like that. So to answer your question, not really, other than we're going to show the crayon, fly the crayon for Juneteenth when in about, I think Amy told me to be up in about a week. And it's also funny because we always get out right before that day. So what I was thinking about is for next year, unfortunately we're doing it too late, is to when I work with the different DEI teams in the schools to talk about including something within Pride Month about Juneteenth as well. So.
No, I think it's a great idea. Maybe we always talk about collaborations between the city and the school
Right,
district.
and we're
I think
trying,
this is a great
when I
opportunity.
said yes and no, the yes part of it is, and Amy did a beautiful flyer for us, is we're starting to recruit, I guess, if you want to call it that, for a student to be on Human Rights Commission. So basically the students, are gone or at the end of the school years, but we're working with their advisors, and we're going to start that very early next year to get students on that as well.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
hopefully that will increase the collaboration.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mrs. Anderson?
Could you tell us the location of?
Oh, I'm sorry, of Juneteenth, I don't know what they call, is it called Freedom Park? Centennial Park? Okay, Centennial Park is behind the new Henry Ford, I'm sorry? Centennial, well, she knows, she works for the city. Centennial Commons, right behind Henry Ford, I guess, is that a hospital or? Okay, right there. And the library's on one side, and we'll have food trucks, and it's on that grass there, sort of kind of what we had last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's a nice event. I remember last year too, there was assorted vendors too as well.
We have vendors coming back, the face painters coming back, lots of food trucks, more food trucks and things this year, and more lessons, if you will, and scavenger hunts and giveaways that are specifically targeted towards Juneteenth. So we want to be real educational about it. I think we're also giving out some free books as well about Juneteenth.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for the information from your conference as well. And
Thank you.
I appreciate
I
hearing about
cannot
that.
boast enough about it. Now, here's the rub. It's in Hawaii next year, so I don't know. I don't know if Mrs. Fitzpatrick is going to allow me to. Right?
Thank you.
Lisa said you support? I'll support. Oh, well, yes, ma'am, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 7, communications.
We've had a few communications this month. Chrissy Karaszewski offers thanks for Daniel Truesdell's leadership. Liz Bayer about Latchkey. Anne Marie Lean Bush about wanting to provide feedback. Heather Hines Lewis about the Oakland Press list of top scholars. And Suzanne Maloney about flag protocol.
Thank you. Moving on to 8, budget presentation. Mrs. Abella?
Good evening. Tonight is our budget presentation for our Truth in Taxation hearing. Item 11.3.1, later on tonight's agenda, are the millage rate recommendations. The debt millage, you'll see here that I have the actual levy for the 22-23 school year on the top line, and then the recommended levies I'm going to speak about on the bottom line. The debt millage rate has been reduced to 2.2 mils. Paul Stauder from PFM, who is our municipal advisor, verified the millage rate on each of our 2 outstanding issues that we have. We are levying 0.97 mils on the 2018 bonds and 1.23 mils on the 2020 bonds. The building site sinking fund millage rate is 1.0 with the new levy that was voted in November of 2022. The sinking fund millage generates roughly $3.7 million each year. Just as a reminder, we are required to roll back millage rates when the rate of property growth exceeds the rate of inflation. I know that's a big mouthful. It's called the L4029 that we received from Oakland County. This year, the rate of inflation was higher than the rate of the property taxes rose, so there is no rollback on our mills this year. The hold harmless millage rate has been calculated at 1.1109 mils. We collect $589 per pupil. We previously collected $851 per pupil. When the state finalized their budget in the summer of 2021, they changed the hold harmless millage calculation. Because Royal Oak Schools is a 100% summer levy, we reduced the levy in our 22-23 year more than we had in previous years because we had already collected that summer of 2021. The voters approved a millage rate of 3.4 mils, which has been permanently rolled back due to the Headley rollback to 3.3175 mils, but we only levy what we need to collect the $589 per pupil. This is why my recommendation is 1.1109 mils. Each year, I receive a workbook from Michigan Treasury to help set that hold harmless millage rate. Let me tell you, they really scrutinize that, and there's more calculations that go into that than they have previously. I think we all learn something a little new about taxation each year. Overall, locally determined taxes have increased by 0.3778. That is roughly $37.78 on every $100,000 of taxable value. This is due to the change in the hold harmless millage back to our regular collection and the new levy of the building site and sinking fund being restored to 1.0 mils. And then here is a picture of that L4029. It goes to our 5 taxing authorities. That'll be signed tonight by our president and our secretary after it's voted on later on in our agenda. Are there any questions before I go into the budget part of the presentation? Okay, there's a lot of budgets, so if you have any questions, certainly let me know. There are 4 budgets that we are legally required to approve by the board each year. They are the general fund, the community service fund, the food service fund, and the student activity fund. While we are not legally required to set the debt retirement fund, I do have that information for you this evening as well. All right, so the timeline for approving budgets is June 22nd, 2023. So this is the millage rate, truth and taxation. We're gonna go through the budgets. They will change a little bit between now and June 22nd. We're still receiving information. We're going to get to the final payroll of the year as more information comes. As I work with the other cabinet members, and we're looking at student enrollment, things like that, any outstanding contracts, those numbers get added in as we move along, or any staffing changes. So right now, the budget assumptions that we have been working on is currently in our budget, we have our student enrollment set as flat. There's a change in the PA 152, which is the hard cap on our medical insurance. It's 4.1 that it will go up in the 2024 calendar year, so it's only half of our school year. So that's why it's calculated at 2.05%, which is an increase of about $133,000. The retirement, which we call MIP serves, is the 147A increase to match its increase is proposed. So right now, we don't have full information on the ORS, so we don't expect any change, but generally the 147A balances that out so that we don't see any increase in our expenditures. Collective bargaining agreements, we have a negotiating year right now with ROASA, so all I've calculated for ROASA at this point is their steps, an assumption that we would have steps, only because we have that in our other union agreements. For the ROEA, which is our teachers union, roughly $2.1 million increase. ROASA, which is our paraprofessionals and our secretarial unit, about $311,000. For ROSPA, which is our psychologist, about $5,300. It's a small group of about 6 people. And then our non-rep group, we have a small subset of people that are not represented in any one of those unions. That increases about $143,000. We calculate a savings of about $20,000 per retirement. We hire people at more steps than we have previously, mostly due to the teacher shortage. We used to glean a much larger savings. So that's what we're using at this time. I'm not sure what our current retirements are at, but I think we're going to hear a little bit about that a little bit later in the evening. Our ability to adjust staffing ratios, we use about $120,000 per staff member when we're adding new teachers, and that's due to salary, ORS, FICA, and full benefits. All of our third-party contracts are settled, and these are the increases to each of those. Transportation, which is Durham, is $42,000 increase to next year. Maintenance, custodial, and grounds is about $70,000. Safe Ed is about $30,000. Oakland Schools Technology is an increase of $91,000, and then also there's an Affordable Care Act impact with our EduStaff employees. We don't know what that is right now because it depends on whether or not those employees go into the marketplace and select healthcare coverage, and then we get billed back for that. So that information isn't available yet. At this point, we have no program additions or deletions planned in our budget. So we start with a prior year structural deficit. So our starting point is roughly 1.371 million. And then the impact items that I just ran through. So we have a net impact for known items of about $4.2 million. I looked today. I haven't seen any movement on the state budget. If somebody else has seen some, I would love to know. But I did check the House Fiscal Agency, the Senate Fiscal Agency, my favorite places to look, and MSBO, and haven't seen any change. We had hoped we would have a state budget by the middle of the month. Doesn't look like we're going to get there. So still depicting what the three different branches of government, so nothing's really changed here from last month when I've given this presentation. So just the net impact is somewhere between $1 million and 1.6 structural deficit is what I would expect when we set the budget. Hopefully, we'll hear a little bit something more between now and June 22nd about those. And of course, I would include that in a presentation on June 22nd. So the general fund. Like I said, we're still working on this. We're still adding in some the items and paying out what we need to for the end of the school year, making sure we're capturing all our expenses. As a matter of fact, our auditors were here today running through some of that too. So it's coming to a close really quickly here. So the final amendment, what I would expect is about a structural deficit of $750,000. And then the original budget for the 23-24 school year is probably going to be a little bit closer to $2 million. Like I said, we're still negotiating with ROASA and adding some programs or staff members. So that's about where we are for tonight. I just want to point at the bottom, we did use as an assumption the governor's proposal of $458 per pupil increase on the foundation allowance. The Community Service Fund budget is coordinated by Kim Boyce, our finance manager that works in my department. Most of the programs that are in here are Churchill Community High School and the GSRP program, the Latchkey program. We balance this to the general fund primarily because the foundation allowance for the students at Churchill are recognized in the general fund, so we balance the fund back to zero. The difference between the expenditures for the 2 years and why it looks like it goes down and it looks kind of funny is because we had a very large grant for the child care fund. Those expenses and revenue are also recorded in this fund. The food service fund, which I work with Mike Jacobs, our food service manager from Chartwells, on this budget. These are expected structural deficits for each year. We have an excess fund balance. We are only allowed to hold in the fund 3 months of operating income. It's part of a federal requirement due to the free and reduced lunch program. So this is planned spending, increase in food quality. We've bought some new food service equipment. We're putting in a new loading dock at Royal Oak High School and some other items. The elimination of reduced cost lunches is also one of the things that's included here. And so these are planned, and then that number in the lower right, the lower right corner is a little bit closer to what our 3 months of operating income. And then the student activity fund, also required, is this is where we house all the student activity funds. So any club or group across the district has a student activity fund. We're required to follow the same laws that govern our general fund, which is why we have to pass a budget. And this is really in and out. So the soccer team has a fund, the student council at the high school, and all of those. And then finally, the debt fund. And like I said, I did work on these numbers with Paul Stauder. As the fund balance goes up a little bit, we plan the mills so that we bring it back down in line. We want to generally stay under $1 million, but we certainly want to make sure that we are collecting enough to make the principal and interest payments on both of those bond issues each May and November. And then just a final slide, just pointing out once again what I had said at the beginning, which is 0.97 mils on the 18 debt service and 1.23 mils on the 2020. Are there any questions about the budget presentation?
I did have just one quick question, and
Sure.
it was on the slide that you showed, year-to-year changes in the, I think it was the Oakland Schools Technology, the increase, and it was 90-some K or something like that. That's like a full year impact of that additional tech support? Is that what it is? I can't remember, I apologize.
Oh, yes, please.
So we have a contract with Oakland Schools over 3 years, and this is the rate we expected it to grow for the second year. The new tech integrationist that will be with us full-time for elementary next year is a part of another reduction we were able to make to keep it. But the expected growth in the Oakland Schools tech agreement is that $91,650.
Thank you. Any questions? You're done, Mrs. Isabella? Okay, sorry.
I am, thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, Mrs. Anderson?
I guess I just want to mention that we talked about all of this in depth at Facilities and Finance last Thursday, and, my usual PSA, come join a committee of the district. We have a lot going on, and we'd love to have more citizens participate.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, public hearing, 2023-24 budget and millage rate. This is a designated, I'm going to just read this. A public hearing is a designated time on the agenda for the public to provide input to the specific agenda item, which at this point is the 2023-2024 budget and millage rate. Rules for public comment apply, and the only public comments at this time are related to that specific item. 9.1, open to public comment. Any public comment on that specific issue? Seeing none, 9.2 will close public comment. Moving on to consent agenda, number 10. We have currently on the consent agenda 10.1, personnel changes, 10.2, payment of expenses, 10.3, field trips, and that's it. Do we have any additions or deletions? Seeing none, consent agenda approved and passed. Moving on to number 11, matters for discussion action. Number 11.1, Superintendent, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you very much. I just have a few quick announcements before my presentations this evening. First, we were very pleased to be able to participate as the school district with the cereal drive that was held this morning at the Kroger at 12 and Stevenson. 100.3 WNIC, Children's Hospital and Gleaners were there collecting cereal for those families that need the food from the food banks that they have. It was a really fun event. They collected a lot. And actually, we connected with a few folks from Gleaners to talk about future collaborations with the school district. So I was able to do that this morning. That was a lot of fun. As was said before, our graduations have been wonderful. Our students from Royal Oak High School, Churchill High School, the adult education programs, as well as the International Academy, all have celebrated their graduations, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of those. We did issue a statement to our community today regarding the air quality. We were watching the numbers all day, and I want to thank Amy Murphy for helping us track those, as well as our staff. in the facilities department, and Isabella and her staff. And we really knew that the warning was going out for those who already struggle with some health concerns. So anyone who had those was able to stay indoors today. And we're monitoring all of the alerts by the National Weather Service and Eagle in Michigan regarding tomorrow. And then also, just as a mention, Officer Yerke has been our school resource officer for 5 years now. And the Royal Oak Police Department is in the process of selecting a new school resource officer that will work with us very closely. And so I'll have more information for that to come. But Officer Yerke was here earlier, and I just wanted to make sure we mention, is he hiding out there? And we will also be honoring him at an upcoming meeting. And there is Officer Yerke. Thank you, thank you. We will definitely celebrate you and all of your contributions to our district at an upcoming meeting, so you must be there. So just letting you know that right now. All right. Thanks for being here. All right. So I'm going to step up to the other microphone regarding our long-range planning. So just about a year ago, I was able to, you don't have to turn it up. I can move the puck. Right. Can you hear me now? All right. So just about a year ago, I was able to present to the community our State of the Schools address. And at that time, we talked about launching our long-range planning for the school district here. One of the things that we have shared is that long-range planning, that is a process that we do because the end product will be a district strategic plan. For us, this is not a linear process. This is something where we have conversations about defining our mission, vision, and values for the school district. We will be informed by all stakeholders through conversations, through committees, through presentations, running surveys, and through that gathering feedback in a survey format that's more traditional that we just put out to our community and staff, and our board participated in that as well as Thought Exchange, our tool where hot topics and concerns and comments were able to be vetted by the users of that Thought Exchange, where they could comment and rate on each other's comments. In the summer of '22, we began gathering all of that information, talking to stakeholders. In August of '22, that State of the District address can still be found on YouTube. In October, we had our formal kickoff with a committee that convened in this room of stakeholders and staff from across the district who wanted to participate on a regular basis on our committee. In November and through February, we've had committee discussions, we've had focus groups where I've gone out to the schools to talk with staff directly, we have student input involved, and we also have prioritized our goal strategies, followed by our mission and vision comments that were at our last meeting. So from March through May, we've had a Board of Education workshop. Our administrative council has worked quite a few different times with the topics at hand, having conversations about how it applies specifically to their programs and to their schools. We've shared with our stakeholder groups a number of times. You should be reading our dispatch that goes out monthly. Again, thank you to Amy Murphy for all her work on that. We have regular updates to the community, as well as I provide regular updates to our Board of Education. So in the recent survey, we were looking at our key goal statements, which I will talk about tonight, our action plans that were set per each goal, and then some very specific strategies that go along with each of those. We had said that in June we would present our findings to date, and that's why we're here this evening presenting this, to let you know where we stand. Our Long-Range Planning Committee looked at a number of agenda items this year. We shared and discussed a pupil enrollment projection study that was conducted by Plant Moran Cressa, and it was presented to the Board of Education in 2022. We talked about the current state of our schools and the programs that we offer pre-K through 12 and post-high school. Mr. Walensky was able to share staffing status and data that we know about the current workforce in Royal Oak schools. And Ms. Isabella talked about district finances and the state of our economics in the district, as well as the influence that we have from the state of Michigan, grants and funds, which we know this year the grant funds were way up, and how we were able to use those. The Long Range Planning Committee also took a look at building and site. We broke up into several groups, probably learned more about tuck pointing and roof structure and concrete and fences, but it helped us to assess the current projects that we had at the tail end of our 2017 bond projects, and there are always needs. In our district, we have many buildings and millions of square feet of learning space that need to be attended to, and we want to make sure that the future needs of those are looked at as well. We talked about the state of transportation in our district. We do transport our special education students, some of our athletic teams, and sometimes on our field trips. We also talked about the past considerations for general education transportation that Royal Oak schools had made in the past. And we also took a very deep dive into safety, physical safety as well as emotional safety. We looked at the improvements that we have made to our schools over time, and we also shared findings from our safety audit that was conducted. We took an in-depth look with Dr. Ioannis and his team at curriculum and instruction, not only looking at who we serve, but how we do it. We looked at all the programs and services and talked about key elements of what we believe is high-quality education. We wanted to make sure that our instruction and the student learning matched through culturally relevant curriculum, student-centered instruction, data-informed decision-making, differentiating our instruction to meet the diverse needs of our students. We want it highly collaborative. We want to set high expectations for our students, and we also knew that social and emotional learning was very important. This was a new event, Soup with the Super. We actually had a soup supper in January of '23. It was a way for me to engage with residents in the community who do not have children yet in our schools. It was a very mixed group of young people from the community, as well as some of our senior citizens or retirees or single folks in the community who don't have children in the schools. They shared information with us, and we shared a lot about our district, and unanimously at the end of the evening, they wanted another event to do this again, so we will be looking at that for this summer. So, our strategic plan to date. After all of that work and preparation, we have now landed on 4 key goal areas: curriculum and instruction, our community collaboration, resources, including finances and our facilities, and our human resources. Each one of those goals is supported by 1 to 2 action plans, and under that are multiple strategies. Goal 1 for curriculum and instruction, Royal Oak Schools is committed to fostering an impactful learning community where students will be embraced, accepted, challenged, and prepared. There are 3 different action plans under curriculum and instruction. The first is about how the students learn. We know that that happens when they are engaged and their learning is authentic. The second is that students benefit from timely and meaningful feedback. That's the data-driven decision-making. Kids should know what that means when they're given feedback. And action plan C, students will demonstrate readiness for what is next. That talks to our transitions from 5th to 6th grade. What do we know about pre-K and how it influences elementary instruction? Each of the goals and action plans are supported by a number of strategies. So real world and inquiry-based experiences, embedding the instruction with social and emotional learning, et cetera. And so these strategies will be things that we will carry out into the next school year. We also extended that for curriculum and instruction to talk about meeting individual student needs. We've spoken here at board meetings before about multi-tiered systems of support, social workers, psychologists, students that go out for extra help in math, science, and reading, or to help them with their emotions or their social needs. We need to educate and prepare students for their future with career readiness activities, and we also know we want to expand our current CTE offerings in the district. Moving on to goal 2, this is a wonderful community. We have a number of times throughout our school year where we collaborate with our community. We have 2 action plans for this one. One where the student experiences are enhanced by partnering with the community, and then secondly, where the district systems are able to track all of those collaborations with the neighborhood businesses and organizations, including our own groups such as ROYA or PTA, our school foundation. So those are groups that also contribute. So it's not only those for the city of Royal Oak, but also our internal groups that we work with. And each of the strategies that I have that are listed here talk about enhancing the community collaborations. We obviously want to seek more of those, more sponsorships, more chances for our students and our staff to engage with our wonderful community here in Royal Oak. We also want to create stronger partnerships for community mental health. The school district has become the hub for so many things before and after COVID. But we also know we can't do it alone, and so we need more resources from our community to help us with that. We also want to continue to create a district-wide database because tracking all of this information is very important. We have so many folks that have reached out to us to help our students and staff over the years, and we want to make sure that we have that organized here at the district level, either by facilitating that with one of our current staff members or by helping others to give us input. Our third goal was regarding finance and facilities, to responsibly optimize the use of all of those. The first one speaks to managing the district funds. As we've talked at this table again many times, we've got a number of grants that have come into our district over time. They have very specific uses, and we are responsible to talk about how we've used those grant funds responsibly, and I want to make sure that we track that. So we will secure those programs and resources and be responsible stewards of the district funds. And then also make a commitment, which I again believe this district has done very well, which is to maintain our district properties and facilities to maximize all of those for the sake of the programs and our students. There are a number of strategies that we have in place about maximizing the pursuit of those. Some grants come to us that we just apply for, some come in our state aid, and others are competitive and we need to apply. We've been very successful in winning some of those competitive grants. Sometimes not, but we keep doing it because we know it's the benefit to this district if we continue to do that. We also want to explore the expansion of pre-K offerings in the district and also to review the physical security measures in our current schools. And we also want to take a look at our school boundaries as we do that, because it's been some time now since we've taken a look at where the geography lies for our elementary schools, and that was a suggestion that we might want to look at into the future, as well as exploring and adopting some of the green infrastructure and systems to help with sustainability in the district. And then finally, this committee has worked very hard. They have a number of supporting strategies for them to create alternative learning spaces. Through the generosity of some of our PTAs, we have some outdoor learning spaces, and we want to continue to grow that, as well as outside the classroom. How can we expand the learning environment to include the wonderful resources in the Metro Detroit area? And of course, you know, taking a close look at our athletic facilities as well as our learning facilities. Our fourth goal, human resources, is of course to attract and retain the best staff, and they have a single action plan. An optimal workplace environment is desirable to both a diverse pool of potential employees and is provided for all employees who will then want to stay here long term. So we're committed to the future employees of Royal Oak Schools, and we also want to hear from and learn from the current employees that we work with. We want to acknowledge the national teacher or staffing shortage and the challenges that might face as a district that we might face. We want to work with our universities and to host more student teachers. We have a very good return on that investment. Teachers learn why they are here, and we end up employing them. We want to market ourselves as a historically, to the historically black colleges and other diverse organizations to make sure that we're creating a relationship for a more diverse talent pool. We want to market ourselves as an equal employment organization, as we always do, and then behave as such. And that's something that we've heard from other feedback from those that may have left our district and others that interview with us, and we just want to make sure that those messages are clear in either being hired by Royal Oak Schools or even applying here. We also want to be mindful of the social and emotional needs of our staff. We talk a lot about supporting our students in the classroom. We want to make sure that the adults that work with the children are also well prepared. And we also want to provide a work environment where the employees do feel safe and supported, that they work in a place with peace of mind, and they have a sense of belonging here where they come every day. And I think our recognition of that proclamation tonight speaks to that as well. And there are a few others for that. So some things that have been decided. We do want to make sure that we are communicating our strategic plan. We want to create a one-page at a glance type of document that folks can refer to, as well as a living document where they can look at more details. And we want to update our community on a regular basis. We've been working with our mission statement. This is the current mission statement for Royal Oak Schools. This may end up being our mission statement again, but it's something that we will absolutely work with the feedback from our community on. And our vision is a community of excellence. And this is something that I inherited when I came to the district, and I think it's well stated and simple. And I also believe it's something that all of our programs and improvements can lead to. And then finally, surveys to our staff and community. This is just a snapshot to date. We had about 208 community responses thus far. That has been sent out, and we'll be sending that link out again. This is a question set that's at the very end after taking a look at the goals, action plans, and strategies that I just spoke of and asking for some feedback. It's about 50-50 for folks responding to this survey of those 208 if they've heard of our long-range planning before. We believe we publish that all the time, but it just tells us that there are some folks who were not quite aware of it yet, and we want to keep that communication flowing. We often use initials and acronyms in the things that we do in a school district, and so the vocabulary may not be easy for folks, although the feedback from those respondents has said that they do believe the vocabulary that was used is easy for them to understand. The committee did say that they wish there were a glossary, a matching document to go along with this so that if you don't and are not familiar with the term, you can refer to that. We want to make sure that our plan is flexible, and that was supported by this survey thus far. And we also want to make sure that it's visible and well communicated. And that, again, was supported by the 208 community members that have responded thus far. So looking ahead to this summer, we do need to work with and affirm a mission and vision statement for the district. We are potentially creating a list of the values that we have as a school district from all of the stakeholder feedback and conversations we have had thus far. We will fully review all of the feedback from the stakeholder surveys from our staff and community and the board. We're going to work on organizing the strategies that we have been talking about, and we want to add timelines and status updates because we know that we can have all these great plans, but if we are not accountable for them on a regular basis and hold ourselves to that, we do not want this work to get lost. We need to add responsible parties, departments, and entities for that feedback, and then finally assess whether there's a potential budget impact. Either money that would be coming in from some of those relationships and conversations, or if we're committing to new programs that will impact our budget. And then finally, in September, after all of the summer's work and taking into consideration all the work that we've done thus far, I will present a full long-range plan and strategic plan to the community at the State of the Schools address, which right now is being planned for September. And again, this just affirms that next school year, we will definitely be sharing the plan, and then we will go to work, making sure that all of the commitments that we have made are the things that we're doing in the district. There will be another update to the Board of Education in January. We agreed to at least one formal presentation to update, and then, of course, evaluate and adjust this plan because we are committed to it meeting our needs of the time. And just a reminder again of what the long-range planning is for, to get us ready and set us up for the future in the district. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
I know personally I've been at all the meetings, so I think, anybody questions? No, thank you to the whole team here. I know there's been a lot of work done. And thank you to the community that's provided their input, because that's pretty key. So, yeah, thank you. We look forward to what comes next.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 11.1.2 on your agenda, I'd like to just draw your attention to that. It's the 2023-24 MHSAA membership. And I have a recommendation for you this evening. Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education hereby delegates to me, the superintendent or designee, the responsibility for the supervision and control of said activities, and hereby accepts the Constitution and bylaws of said association and adopts as its own the rules, regulations, and interpretations as minimum standards as published in the current handbook of the governing code under which the school district shall conduct its programs of interscholastic athletics, and agrees to primary enforcement of said rules, regulations, interpretations, and qualifications. In addition, it is hereby agreed that schools which host or participate in the association's meets and tournaments shall follow and enforce all tournament policies, procedures, and schedules. And this would be effective from August 1st, 2023, and shall remain in effect until July of 2024. during which the time the authorization may not be revoked. And that's my recommendation this evening for you.
So you threw me off a little bit reading the recommendation. Sorry. Yeah.
I'll move the recommendation.
Do I ask for a second? Okay, Mrs. Anderson, thank you. Oh, I was gonna say, so Tim supported, right? I'm sorry. Thank you. Can we have a vote, please?
Madam President, I do have
Trustee
a question before we vote.
Sorry.
It says, Mrs. Patrick, it says the superintendent or your designee. Are you going to solely oversee this, or is this something more so done by the athletic director or somebody else?
So ultimately, I would be responsible for overseeing this, but obviously I don't do it alone, as you mentioned. So that would be with the, in conjunction with our Director of Athletics and Activities at Royal Oak High School, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, trustee Van Heitzma. I'll vote yes. Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Are you saying anything about that?
Also, item 11.1.3 is the second reading of revised and replaced and/or recommended policies and guidelines that our board committee has reviewed.
Thank you. Can I have a recommendation? Mrs. Alexander.
Resolved, excuse me, resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the second reading of the policies and administrative guidelines being revised, replaced, and/or recommended as presented in the board packet.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mrs. Haynes? Any comments, questions? May I have a roll call, please?
I will vote yes. Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.2, curriculum and instruction. Dr. Ioannis?
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heitzma. I wanted to share some very engaging and informative recent career readiness activities and events that have taken place within our buildings and within our school district. One of the first things, or this past week, what happened and took place, I should say, is our Upton fifth graders had a chance to visit Oakland Schools Tech Campus, and the students really had a chance to enjoy these hands-on and engaging activities. The OSTC students were able to provide our fifth grade students at Upton a tour, and as part of that tour, they really learned about some of the programming offerings that take place at OSTC. For example, they learned about the auto body shop, where students had a chance to sanded a quarter panel and learned about welding. So those were nice experiences and opportunities for our fifth graders. They learned about programming and operating robots to lift the ball and to kind of take part in some of the components of that. And then they also took some time to learn about some of the construction sciences that took place there, which talked about electrical wires and hammers and those components. And they even had a chance to, within that health sciences, to get a better understanding of how to rescue someone who happens to be choking. So really our students in fifth grade at Upton had this wonderful opportunity thanks to Mrs. Van Every, one of the fifth grade teachers at Upton. Similar to that, as far as career and readiness events and experiences, this was a wonderful week for our ROMS STEMI event that took place at Royal Oak Middle School. So when we talk about this STEMI event, it's an Oakland Schools Career and Readiness event that is really supported and facilitated by Oakland Schools within their Career and Readiness program. It's a mobile STEMI education lab, so it was literally a semi-truck that was parked at ROMS. And our students really had a chance to, again, learn a little bit about some important components of STEM education, which again is science, technology, engineering, and math. And we, as you'll see from some of these pictures, our students really had a chance to engage in some focus areas within the STEMI event. For example, some smart manufacturing, which included students learning about how augmented reality supports manufacturing. And then we also had students engage with collaborative robots, which really helped them understand programming robots to perform tasks without some of the direct contact there. The autonomous vehicles, students also had a chance to engage with the sensing and audio components of vehicle communication. And then lastly, they had a chance to learn about extended reality, which really gave students an opportunity to diagnose virtual patients or operate heavy machinery or try welding virtually as well. So this was all week, and it was scheduled for all students in grades 6 through 8. I had a chance to take a visit there, and it was definitely a high hands-on learning and very engaging activities. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to share our video for this month. As you know, each month we provide instructional video series, which really focuses on some of the important things that are taking place within our buildings. The focus for this month is school transitions from K all the way through 8th grade. One of the most important things for our students is to have systems in place that support them throughout the school transition process. So this video will focus on some of the things that we do to help this process for our students and families.
So we start off with a information night where parents come and they learn about the curriculum. They get to meet the teachers, get to meet the principals and the rest of the staff. And then we talk about the curriculum and then what the day looks like for kindergarten. And then new this year is kind of like our open house for kindergarten is at some point in the spring, we will have an opportunity for our incoming kindergartners to come to the school and just have like a social event. At Keller, we are having cookies with kindergarten, and so our current kindergartners have put together a scavenger hunt for them. So they'll participate in a scavenger hunt, and on the back it'll have little tips and helpful tips for them on what to expect when they come to kindergarten. And then it's also it will become a buddy in the school when they come the first day. And then in August, we will have a day where our kindergartners will come back before everybody starts the school year, and it will just be them, and we have an opportunity for them to actually meet their teacher, be in their classrooms, and kind of walk through what their day is going to look like by touring the buildings, seeing their lockers, and all of these other things that happen having the day in the life of a kindergartner.
Here at ROMS, we do a number of activities throughout the school year to prepare our 5th graders to become 6th graders. One of the things we do is host an open house for families and students to come to our building in our auditorium and try and kind of go over what ROMS is like and what they can expect as a Bulldog. Also, we have our 5th graders come during the school day and tour our building. Our student connectors at ROMS lead tours around the entire building, and it's a great activity, great day for our 5th graders to get acclimated to the building, meet teachers, meet students, and just have a good time. And then another thing we do is myself and the new 6th grade counselor, this year would be Carrie Lawrence, go to the elementary schools to answer any questions they may have about scheduling, what the day is like, the clubs that we offer, the sports they can play, anything that's on their mind to put them at ease is our job to answer those questions the best we can. Then of course we have our Bulldog Bound before school starts on August 16th. That students can come pick up their schedules, tour the building again, find their classes, find their locker, and really be prepared to be a Bulldog.
If I'm discussing 8th and 9th grade transitions, one of the things that we're well aware of here at Royal Oak High School is that the greatest indicator of success for students is to get the school year off to a fantastic start. Every year, we begin the process of 8th to 9th grade transition in January, and that process begins with scheduling. So what we do as an administrative team, as well as our counseling staff, is we head over to Royal Oak Middle School and we talk to students not only about the wonderful academic opportunities we have, but we also talk with students about the activities. Here at Royal Oak High School, we have about 26 clubs currently, and one of the things we do to highlight those clubs is in September of the following school year, we have something called the Raven Rally. At the Raven Rally, our students, not only do they showcase the wonderful clubs we have here, but they also try to recruit and promote those clubs. So that's just one piece, because we know that getting students involved is, they have the best likelihood of success when they're involved with things outside of the classroom. In addition to that, we have our open house, as well as our personal project exhibit. We also do an 8th grade visit, usually sometime in May, where all of the 8th graders get to come over to Royal Oak High School. They get to ask our upperclassmen questions, and they also get a tour of the building. After talking with parents and students, what we found is the more opportunities we can provide students, as well as their parents and guardians, opportunities to visit the school, the less anxiety they have about coming. In fact, a lot of parents that I speak with have reported to me that they're just as nervous about the high school experience as their son or daughter may be. So we pride ourselves on taking many opportunities to have parents as well as students visit our building. So all of these opportunities together, along with the information we provide both online and in person, helps relieve some of that anxiety that students and parents feel when they transition from 8th grade to 9th grade.
So as you can see, we really put a strong emphasis on the school transitions, and really it helps our students and families. At each of these transitions, we definitely see parents feeling more of a relief and students feeling more welcomed. Again, the key for all of this is to create welcoming environments for all of our students and our families. So I'm excited to hear about this and encourage that we continue to make this something that's a welcoming place at all of our levels for all students. I just wanted to circle back as for our kindergarten spring events. Another thing we're focusing on is when we say kindergarten, we're really trying to better communicate that it's developmental kindergarten and kindergarten. So anytime that anybody hears kindergarten, it also encompasses our developmental kindergarten programs, which we will have one in each of our 6 elementary buildings this fall, which is also exciting. The spring events that Mrs. Dryden spoke about there were all taking place between June 2nd and June 9th. So another wonderful new opportunity for incoming kindergarten students and families to make another connection with their school, with their principal and their teachers. And we will continue to have our August events where we're welcoming families, incoming kindergarten families and students again into our schools to get a better idea of the space that they're going to be living in for the next 6 years. So those are all the updates I have.
Anybody have questions for Dr. Ioannis? Ms. Usinski?
The Upton visit, is that something that has happened every year, or is that new, and why was it only Upton?
That's a great question. So part of what we learned from that experience is it'll definitely be something that we will incorporate in our K-5 career readiness component and plan for next year. Really, Mrs. Van Every took it upon herself. I think she has a connection with that program and has an interest in helping her students grow and better understand about those learning opportunities. And she brought it to Mrs. Fitzpatrick and myself. And with next year's increased learning opportunities and events that have to take place at the K-5 level, this is one that we've already kind of worked into the budget for it to happen for all of our 5th graders. So great question. Yep.
Can that also be something that, whether it's a tour or whatnot, can it happen at the middle school level, just so the kids are aware of the programs that they can do when they get into high school? Because a lot of kids, even the high schoolers themselves, don't realize of all of the different opportunities that there are.
Yeah, definitely. So Janet Norling, who supervises our career readiness programs and events for students in grades 6 through 12, she's also submitted the budget and plan for next year, and we do have some increased opportunities for those students to make those field trip visits to those programs and offerings that we spoke about.
Any other questions? I do have to give a shout out. I was able to visit the STEMI, for lack of knowing what else to call it, So just a huge shout out to Kristen Meldrum and Jill Hill and Kate Chambers for letting me crash into their space. And it's amazing. And I was talking with some of the people from Oakland schools who run the program. And they talked about even the changes from last year to this year with the advanced technology, like more tech than they had even in the year before. So that's just an amazing program. And to watch the kids with it, they just were having a field day. And I'm just like, wow, this is definitely not what I did in 6th grade. So, and thank you, Dr. Ioannis.
I had one more thing. I wanted to bring everyone's attention to item 11.2.1, the Bridges to Reading, and 11.2.2, the CTE Mac Lab. These are items that we discussed at our last Finance and Facilities meeting, but I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention tonight.
Yeah. 11.2.1, Bridges to Reading. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Haynes?
Be it resolved that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to finalize the purchase of Bridges to Reading from Haggerty Material Order in the amount of, hold on, $96,333.30. Oh, and the other one as well? Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, I looked up at Tim and got distracted. Bridge to Reading Foundational Skills for 2nd grade classroom kit, $32,111.10. Bridge to Reading Foundational Skills for kindergarten and 1st grade classroom kits, $64,220.20.
Can I have a second, please? Mrs. Alexander? Any discussion, questions? Mrs. Cook?
Can you speak a little bit as to the sort of components that we would be purchasing with these funds?
Yes, definitely. I'd be happy to. I should also mention that we've had, like Mrs. Fitzpatrick mentioned earlier, as part of the long-range planning presentation, we've had a lot of grant opportunities. The 98C grant, which is really focused on capturing learning loss. When Mrs. Fitzpatrick worked on that form to apply for it, that was one of the more competitive grants. We were awarded a decent size reward, and we were able to use some of those funds to purchase these Bridges to Reading. So really we wanted to focus on the phonics component. We took a little bit of a step back with our ELA pilot plan, and in doing so we needed another year or two really to visit some of the resources, but we really feel that the Bridges to Reading Haggerty phonics component is going to help really bridge that gap for those students in those grades. We also feel pretty confident that this resource will still be something that can be continued to be used at all buildings, even when we land on the pilot resource materials for ELA instruction.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
I will vote yes, and the motion passes.
Thank you. 11.2.2 CTE WOAK Mac Lab. Can I have a recommendation? Ms. Jasinski?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to finalize the purchase of 22 24-inch iMac computers from Apple in the amount of $39,487. The competitive bid process has been achieved utilizing the following processes: REMC statewide competitive bid process.
Can I have a second, please? Mr. Jaworski? Any questions, conversation? We did discuss this as well at Finance and Facilities as well, so thank you for that additional information. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Motion passes.
11.3 Finance and Facilities and Bond. Mrs. Abella?
As we spoke about during the Truth and Taxation meeting, or portion of the meeting, I should say, is 11.3.1 for your consideration on tonight's agenda, the millage rate recommendation.
May I have a recommendation? Mrs. Anderson?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the 2023-2024 millage rate as presented in the board packet.
Can I have a second? Mrs. Alexander? May we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jacinski.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And last but not least, 11.4, Staff and Student Services. Mr. Walensky?
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heitzma. I was going to say, I see that we're nearing the end of our agenda, and you'll please be pleased to know I'm going to be brief. This has been a busy week. We are at graduation, 2 graduation ceremonies. There's many end-of-the-year celebrations. So busy time of year. It's finalizing this year. It's also a very busy time of year preparing for next school year. We're enrolling a lot of children for next year, kindergarten and developmental kindergarten, and we're hiring new employees for next year. So I'll talk about those 2 topics. As you know, enrollment for next year began in January, and it's real busy at first, and it steadily starts to taper off toward the end of the school year. But in the last month, we're still enrolling. We enrolled 32 more children for kindergarten since our last meeting, bringing the total kindergarten enrollment currently to 343, and 6 more children for developmental kindergarten, bringing that total to 70. And just to compare where we are right now to where we were last fall when the school year began, last fall we had 367 children enrolled for kindergarten, so we're within 24 of that number, and 47 for DK, developmental kindergarten, so we're up 23 in that. That's become a popular program. So combined kindergarten and developmental kindergarten, we're at 419. Last fall, we were at 414. And we still have all summer to enroll. So I do anticipate we're going to enroll more kindergarten children for sure between now and the start of school. Not a lot, but last summer we enrolled, I think it was 14 children during the summer months for kindergarten. So enrollment appears, it's already up a bit for those grades, and it appears like it's going to be up even more. Moving on to staffing for next year, it's getting busy. Item 10.1 on tonight's consent agenda lists our personnel changes since we last met. And on that report, I told you it's going to keep getting longer. On that report, you'll see 8 new hire recommendations, which includes 2 paraprofessionals, which, as we always need to hire, and 6 teachers. Also listed are 3 resignations, not uncommon for the end of the school year to receive resignations. 1 leave of absence request for the coming school year for childcare purposes, and 2 retirements. I'd like to just talk about those retirements briefly. Noelle Ochoa, a science teacher from Royal Oak High School this week, announced that she will be retiring from the school district. She began in Royal Oak September 1st of 1993, so 30 years of service. And Judy Drapeski, a math teacher at Royal Oak High School, has been in the district since August 29th of 1990, so 33 years. And obviously I'm not doing a service to them by just listing that. So I've invited all of our retirees to our June 22nd meeting so we can do a better job of acknowledging them. And hopefully we can get most of them to attend that meeting, but we'll say more about each of them individually then. Noelle and Judy bring our total number of end-of-year retirements currently to 8. And, we've had some earlier this spring that retired, effective immediately, but for end-of-year to be replaced at the start of next year, it's currently 8. And as people leave us for retirement, it's also nice to acknowledge people who are beginning their career with us. And just one in particular I wanted to point out. She came in and signed a offer of employment today to teach 2nd grade for Northwood Elementary, Elise McCutcheon, and I mention her because she is I made her clarify for me today. I said, "You're a 2018 graduate of Royal Oak High School, correct? Because I want to tell the board tonight." And she said, "Well, tell them I went to Oakland Elementary too." So she said, "I did all my years in Royal Oak schools, and I do like that." So she was a real good hire for us. As people retire, I do like to see when we replace them with people who are entering this profession, all excited about it. And that's my report. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you. I know I do have to comment on Ms. Ochoa. She was probably one of my daughter's favorite teachers, and every kid that ever had Mrs. Ochoa just raves and raves and raves about her. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, didn't mean to cut you off, but I did want to ask a question.
Oh, and I don't know, Mrs. Dropieski too, but I know to have the 33-year commitment to our district and 30 years commitment to our district is just phenomenal, and I know they'll be sorely missed, so. Go ahead, Mrs. Anderson, sorry.
I do have a question. How are we doing on latchkey staffing?
We continue to be in need of more latchkey staff. It's continuously posted, ongoing, and I'm hopeful that we'll continue or employ more staff in the summer months and recruit new teachers who want to work after school as well, if not every day, at least some of the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, this is our opportunity for second public comment. Same rules apply as before. Eric?
All right, can you guys hear me? Is that good? All right, I have something written down. I just want to read. Okay, so hello, school board. My name is Eric Blessman, and I'm a 2017 graduate from Royal Oak High School. Recently, I graduated in 2022 of May, and I worked at Whole Foods and stuff like that. So recently, I pursued substitute teaching, and I'm pleased that my first day in Royal Oak Schools was last week. It's been a great experience and a blast so far. However, the application and hiring process was not. I wanted to share my own experience with the process and edu staff in general, as I believe it is a deterrent for attracting talent and impacts the brand of Royal Oak Schools. So first, I was sent an email with an attachment that was 27 pages long that I was instructed to print out and complete. Given that I am Gen Z, I'm allergic to paper. Second, at my previous job, Whole Foods, this process was completely automated, so it was possible to do this instead of leveraging technologies only for emails. Granted, I worked for a subsidiary of Amazon, and they have the best-in-class process, so there's that too. Second, I was instructed to attend a mandatory unpaid 2-hour meeting, which I do not oppose, except the fact that the location was in Milford. So I'm wondering, why did I have to drive 50 miles when my first assignment was less than 2 miles from my house? So there's that. I also was going to add that my car actually broke down in the parking lot in Milford, so that was also really fun, but that's besides the point. There was a couple other hiccups, but those were the main issues. I'm confident that with a couple of revisions to the marketing and hiring processes, the substitute pool will expand greatly, especially among the millennial and Gen Z populations. Thank you for your time. That's all I got for now. So I just wanted to add one more thing. I was listening to the superintendent speak, and she was talking about the teacher shortage. And as a substitute teacher, I was helping out with kindergarten, and I've seen that firsthand. I get that. And I get that acknowledging we have a teacher shortage is very important, because it is something that I've also seen. I just think that substitutes are an important factor in that. This is why I wanted to come and talk to you about that. And some of the best subs I ever had in elementary school and middle school and high school were former employees of the district, but also just really hard workers. So that's all I got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We had an additional public comment, but I see that they're not here. Moving on to 13, board comments and liaison. Comments, questions? Okay, well, I have some. Oh, Tim, no, please, Mr. Jaworski.
Just want to thank the superintendent for the communication she sent out the first week of June, informing our community of the Be Smart program, which was a proclamation that we passed, and it's such an important thing that our families and community know how to do that. Thank you.
Just a couple quick things. I already said my semi thank you. So also just congratulations. Sunday was our Royal Oak High School graduation. So congratulations to the class of 23. Amazing graduation as always. And then we were able to see Churchill, Joy Zug recognition, and Mrs. Powell. And so congratulations to that Churchill class from last night. That was an amazing graduation as well. We had honors convocation at the high school for the class of 23. always an amazing event, and just the amount of scholarships our students receive and the accolades our students receive is just amazing. So always nice to attend that as well. June 26th is my Royal Oak Schools Foundation plug for our annual golf outing. So if you're a golfer and you're interested, if you're just interested in attending and being a volunteer, we welcome that as well. Please visit the website, and you can certainly email us. Tomorrow, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Jaworski, myself will be interviewing student board members for next year. We had an application out there for student board members, and so we're very excited to have those interviews tomorrow. And a thank you to our student board members from this year that were able to join us at Finance and Facilities and school board meetings. It was our first time doing that, so it's always, challenging being the first to do something, but we're looking forward to the interest that the students have expressed in doing this for next year, and so we're excited to interview them tomorrow. And that's all I have. Mrs. Haynes.
So I just want to say how great it was with all the graduations as well. My last one is now graduated and about to leave me, and we won't even go into that, how that's going to make me sad. But a shout out to all the parents who helped with senior all-night party. It was a huge success. We had a record number of kids participate this year. I think we had 210 out of a class of 323-ish. And we had over 184 prizes for kids to win. Everything from TVs, microwaves, and to gift cards. So it was a great event. We had the Imagine. The kids had a blast. I hope they continue to do it there. The kids were safe, and they had a lot of fun. And I'm still recovering from being up for 26 hours. So that's all. And thanks to all the teachers and principals at all levels for taking care of both my kids. And now she's off to MSU Honors College. So there we go.
Yoo-hoo. Mr. Jaworski.
I'm going to have to call out Mrs. Haynes for a second here. The softball team is playing a regional game at 10 o'clock on Saturday. How dare you? Take it away.
Okay, I got to take that back. Thank you, Tim. So, oh my God, I'm glad she's not watching. So the Royal Oak High School varsity, she's not. Royal Oak, she's graduated. She's out doing things. But yes, thank you. Royal Oak High School varsity team won districts. They took Berkeley out, which was a fabulous thing because Berkeley always beats us. So go Ravens, caca. And this Saturday at 10 a.m. is our game versus Livonia Churchill. 10 a.m. at the recently, I was going to say moistened, but I don't like that word, wet down field, so hopefully it'll be great. But please, everyone, come on out, even if it's just for one game. First game will be at 10 a.m. If we win, then we'll go on at 2:30, and then there'll be two other teams, I don't know who, sorry, at 12 or 12:30. So the winners of the 10 a.m. and the 12:30 game will play at 2:30. We're hoping it's the Ravens. But we're just super excited. We had 3 seniors on the team, and what a way to end their season. And the coaches are just phenomenal. So thank you, Tim. Yes, come out for the game Saturday.
And Jen, just one last thing, as I see Mrs. Campbell sitting here, just the home stretch is coming for staff, and so just a huge shout out to our teachers and the staff and the team here as we reach the end of the school year. And the excitement level is pretty high, and I know it gets really challenging at the end of the school year to keep the kids going, but just thank you for everything that you do and your staff does. So, and on that note, we are adjourned. Thank you.